See you in hell, Chuckin'!
Hello and welcome to part 2 of a 3-part series where I build a dust collection system using an old bounce house blower. Here is a link to part 1 of the series if you want to start there, but if not, here is a recap of what we did. I attached a toilet flange to the blower. I cut holes in the top of the old yard waste bin for some PVC elbows. I used a shitload of adhesive and duct tape to attach them, which failed miserably. I put a plexiglass window in the waste bin to see how much dust I'm collecting, and then failed again trying to DIY a fine dust collection bag. That's a decent bit of failure in there, but it was a success overall because this thing really sucked. Well, you know what I mean. Once again, here's the design for the system. You can see a more in-depth look in part 1. So the first thing is to figure out these weak elbow joints. Color me shocked that the wads of duct tape and random leftover adhesives I have didn't work. They seem so promising. So I'm just going to pick up some spray foam from my friendly neighborhood hardware store. The spray foam is perfect because it expands and fills in the cracks to keep the bin fairly sealed, and it cures quickly into a really strong joint. You can also trim it back with a jab saw once it's dried. This is crucial because I'll need to connect a hose to the top of the elbow. Oh, and it's pretty fun to watch it as it grows. I attached some screen to the elbow that is attached to the hose pulling to the blower to keep any large particles from being sucked into the blower. Just don't add it to the wrong elbow or you'll end up with some clogged pipes. Now about that whole dust bag thing. This was pretty embarrassing. You can't help but laugh at this stupid idea. There really was no choice but to buy a legit dust bag, unless you want tons of dust blowing into the air of your workshop. You only get one set of lungs, folks. Unless you get a transplant, I guess. One thing I didn't think about in the last video until the very end was I forgot that the bounce house blower has a GFCI built right into the plug. These plugs are designed to shut off during unsafe conditions to prevent electric shock. So every time you turn the blower on and off, the blower has to be reset at the outlet. Great feature for a kid's toy, but not so much for a dust collection system, especially when I'm trying to use it in tandem with a smart outlet that I can control with my phone and watch. To solve the problem, I simply cut the cord and attach a 3-wire connection plug. Now that the foam is cured on the bin lid, it's time to start setting up the new system. First thing is to mount the blower. I didn't record this, but if you're watching this video, I'll assume you know how to attach something to a stud. Now it's time to get going with the main 4-inch PVC pipe that I'll run behind my miter station. Luckily for me, I have a 3-foot-high brick foundation running along my garage walls, so I can have my pipe wedged in between the wall, the brick, and the miter station. You may need to buy or make some supports or straps if you are going to run it on the wall. I'll be using some steel strapping in part 3. Speaking of part 3, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the thrilling conclusion. Also, you'll get to see other fun, informative videos I put out. After cutting the PVC to length, I spent a good bit of time playing around with the pipe and hose lengths, along with connector combinations. There was definitely a lot of trial and error because I had the legs of the miter station to deal with. I really lucked out when I bought the accessories for the system. Harbor Freight, which I know isn't always the greatest, had a kit of accessories on clearance for like $60. It came with 2 10-foot flexible hoses, 2 blast gates, 1 Y connector, a few hoods, and 10 hose clamps. The PVC pipe and fittings all came from Home Depot. These were probably the most expensive parts of the project.
Handpicked, a lickety-split, out of the gates, chomping at the bit. Ooh!
Sorry about that. That is from a woodworking and exercise crossover channel that I am currently working on. Now let's get back to more footage of measuring pipe, cutting pipe, laying pipe, moving pipe, attaching fittings, removing fittings, moving fittings, reattaching fittings. I'm not running pipe up to the ceiling yet, so I'm really just focused on the miter saw and the router table. So the router was the easiest to connect to, so I'll start with that. It connects to where the left side of the pipe ends. I connect the blast gate to the pipe and use a rubber 4-inch to 2.5-inch reducer to connect the hose to the router table. That rubber fitting was being a real piece of shit. I used 2.5-inch flexible hose to connect the rubber to the router. All of the 2.5-inch accessories were from my shop vac dust collection system that I was using before. For the miter saw and the pipe going up the wall, I had to make some adjustments to my miter station. I had to remove the 2.5-inch funnel hood that was inside the dust hood box that I made for the miter station. I glued a piece of 1/4-inch ply to plug up the hole left behind and cut a 5-inch by 5-inch square out of the table for a new 4-inch hood. I connect a hose and glass gate to the Y fitting that's closest to the blower. I ended up removing the whole dust hood box so I could make a modification to make space for the pipe that will eventually be running up beside the window. I cut out a 5-inch by 6-inch chunk out of the back left corner, then flipped that chunk around and nailed it in. I also plugged the cracks with a little bit of spray foam for good measure. All that's left is to test out this bad boy. Well, may want to open the right blast gate. So the suction seems pretty solid for both the router table and the miter station. I'm going to tighten everything and make sure the collection bin is as airtight as it can be and see if it improves at all. Lastly, here are some pictures of the fittings that were used along with the pipes and the accessories. So that's it for part 2. Made some good progress, and I'm excited to keep testing it. Be sure to tune in to part 3 for follow-up on how well the system is working. We'll also connect the table saw and joiner. And finally, I'll be doing a giveaway of my old dust cyclone to one lucky subscriber. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.